Malaysian Flight 370 was shot down, and I saw it happen with my own two eyes. Unless you've been living under a rock, the case of Malaysian Flight 370 is the biggest unsolved mystery in aviation history. I've seen multiple conspiracies as to what happened, where people believe the plane was hijacked by some sort of extremist group, or they were shot down by the Malaysian government, but they are both far from right, and I know because I watched it happen. For context, the flight took off at 12:41 a.m. and reached cruising altitude by 1:01 a.m. Everything seemed normal until its aircraft communication addressing and reporting system and the plane's transponder, which communicated with air traffic control, were switched off. The plane veered off its original path, and Malaysian military radar eventually lost contact with it over the Andaman Sea. This act would be what engages the largest search effort in human history. Initial search efforts were focused on the South China Sea, but as it was discovered that the flight had turned west, the search moved to the Strait of Malacca and the Andaman Sea. Satellite signals suggested the plane might be anywhere on two arcs, one stretching southward from Java into the Indian Ocean and the other stretching northward across Asia. On March 24, based on final signals analysis, and the Malaysian government concluded that the flight had crashed in the Indian Ocean, and it was unlikely that anyone survived. They were wrong. The first piece of debris, a right-wing flaperon, was discovered on a beach in Réunion in July 2015. In the following year and a half, 26 more pieces of debris were found on shores of several countries, some of which were identified as parts of Flight 370. Now that you get the gist of it, most of this information is correct, except the fact that they are missing one key piece of evidence, the plane's altitude history. At the time, I was working on a cargo ship, and our technology on the boat was capable of identifying rapidly moving objects on both axes, which allowed us to virtually observe the horrifying feat of Malaysian flight. Signals recorded by our radar show the missing airliner climbing to an abnormal 45,000 feet, 10,000 feet above the traditional flight altitude of airplanes. Within a near instant, the plane began making a descent, but it was at a speed that I had never seen before. The plane descended a total of 20,000 feet in the span of 60 seconds. I began to realize that this was no normal matter and I felt obligated to investigate. As the plane's altitude continued to decline below 20,000 feet, I noted down the predicted coordinates of this plane through our radar and immediately veered our ship in that direction. I recall my shipmates questioning me over the radio captain. "What is going on up there?" I tried to explain my observation to him, but it was no help. I was rapidly approaching the diving plane. But something caught my eye, something far in the distance that made me realize a potential roadblock in my path to the plane. It was an island. And the island wasn't empty. It was inhabited, and there was what seemed to be a large gray facility there. Checking my GPS and my controls, I searched for what I was looking at, wondering if I should even be veering off our shipping path in the first place. I continued to look, switching between my view of the screen and my distant perception of the island, until I saw two gigantic ships in the shape of aircraft carriers heading in my direction. I received a buzz over our intercom. The call was coming from those ships. I continued to head forward as I had no time to waste. But when I answered the radio, I was greeted with a stern, cold voice. "This is the United States government. You are entering American waters and are no longer in fishing waters. As you are breaking international water laws, we are warning you that your boat will be shot down if you choose to continue to approach this direction. Do not engage with any surrounding aircraft, whether they are aquatic or aviators." Confused yet skeptical, I decided to bring my boat to a stop. I responded. "There is a plane crashing further north. I was going to investigate it. I can forward you the coordinates if you'd like." A long silence followed. He said we don't need them, and the intercom was disconnected. I watched as the boats turned around and began heading in the direction of the plane. I never said anything about my encounter initially, as I thought that the boats were going to rescue the passengers, but as I returned back to my home a month later after transporting cargo, I noticed on the news that the flight was still missing, meaning the United States government had not come forward with their information. I fear that they will find me for releasing this information, but something should have been done by now. The families of those innocent passengers deserve justice and closure.